Hi, second graders. I bet you're wondering who's at the door. Okay, let's find out. The magic trap. Here we go. Evan took a deep breath, pushed himself onto his feet, and headed downstairs. He couldn't believe his eyes. Evan hadn't seen his father in over a year. The last time he had come for a visit was a rainy, cold day in March, and he had stayed for only half of a day. He had to catch a flight. Evan couldn't remember where to. It was a country Evan had never even heard of. It had a lot of Z's and K's in its name. Evan's dad was always flying somewhere, and he never carried more than a backpack with him. He liked to travel light. Over the years, Evan had come to think of that black backpack as just another part of his father's body. It was always there. "Hey, Evan, my man," his dad called to him. Jesse was literally spinning like a top around him, shouting, "You're home, you're home!" Sometimes a wire tripped in Jessie and she could go a little bananas. Evan's mother was trying to get Jessie to settle down by catching her shoulders so she could stop spinning. Evan looked at his mom and wondered if his parents had hugged when they first saw each other. "Hi, Dad," he said, still standing on the stairs, eyeing the familiar backpack that leaned against the front door. Why was his dad here? Why today, when there were all these other days that he hadn't showed up, like birthdays and Christmases and summers? What made this the day? "Come here," his dad said. His voice was friendly, but a little loud. "Jessie, quit it," Evan commanded. Jessie was spinning so fast her arms were flying all over the place, like a propeller blades on an old-fashioned plane. She spun too close to the wall and knocked over the wooden coat rack that stood in the corner. It crashed onto the floor, just missing hitting her on the head on the way down. Evan's mother got a hold of her, but Jessie fought to wiggle out of her grasp. Evan hurried over to his little sister and grabbed her by the waist. "Come on, I have to show you something. It's important." "No, I want to stay with Daddy," Jessie shouted, squirming away from Evan. But he was an expert at holding her by the shoulders in just the right way. It helped her slow down her breathing. "Well, we'll come back in a minute," said Evan firmly. "But I need to show you something first, okay?" He stared at Jessie and started taking her towards the stairs, and she went along. "We'll be right back, Dad," she called over her shoulder. "Don't go anywhere, okay?" Evan took Jessie into the bedroom and told her to sit down on the bed. Her cheeks were bright red and her face was sweaty. A strand of her hair was stuck to her chin. "What do you have to show me?" she asked, her eye on the floor. "Wait here," he said. He disappeared into the room and came back holding a deck of cards. Then he arranged Jessie's desk chair and night table so that he was sitting in the chair with the night table between the two of them. Evan spread the cards on the table. "A trick? That's not important," she said. Jessie got up to leave the room, but Evan said, "It's a good one, and I'll explain the secret at the end." She hesitated and then sat back down. "An ordinary deck of cards," he said, picking up the cards and fanning them out so Jessie could see that the cards were in no particular order. "Now, I'm going to tell you a story of 4 kings who were brothers." Evan quickly searched through the deck of cards and he pulled out each of the kings. Then he placed them face down on his lap. So you can see the 4 kings. Once again, notice that there's nothing unusual about this deck of cards. He fanned the deck out in his left hand and he waved the cards in front of Jessie's face. Now, the kings are going to travel to the 4 corners of the earth. The first king will go to the north. He slid the first king card face down into the deck near the top. The next will go to the south. The third will travel to the west, and the 4th will journey to the far east. As he spoke, he slipped the remaining 3 king cards into the deck. But the king's troubles are just beginning. An evil sorcerer has decided to create chaos by mixing up with down, in with out, right with wrong. Watch as I shuffle the cards with half the deck face up and half the deck face down. Evan turned half the deck face up and shuffled the 2 halves together so that the cards were all mixed up, face up and face down. He shuffled again and again. How will the kings ever find their way home? Can you help them? Can you find the 4 kings and bring them home? He looked at Jessie. Her breathing had slowed down. Her eyes were on the deck of cards. Her hands were still at her side. He held the deck in front of her and said, "Put your hand on the cards, close your eyes, and say, 'Kings, come home, come home. You will no longer roam.'" Jessie was quiet, staring intently at the deck of cards. She placed her hand over them and whispered the magic words. "Okay, see if you can find them." Evan spread out the cards on the night table, face up. All of them were facing in the same direction, except for 4 of them. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Breathlessly, Jessie plucked each of the 4 face-down cards and turned them over. There were the 4 kings. "How did you do that?" she whispered. "I didn't do it," said Evan, shrugging. "You're the one who made them come home." "But what's the trick?" she asked. "The trick is," said Evan, "that I got you to quiet down. You were going nuts out there, Jess." He started to shuffle the cards. "But how did you—" "I'll tell you later, I promise. But right now we have to go back downstairs. Can you keep calm, or are you going to start spinning again?" "But he's home, Evan. He's finally home." "Yeah, I know. So?" Evan kept his eyes on the cards and made sure his voice was steady. "He'll be gone probably later today or tomorrow." "No, not this time," said Jessie, shaking her head. "He brought a suitcase." Evan laughed a short little laugh. "He did not." "He did. I saw it. It's on the front steps right outside the door." "You're loco. Dad doesn't—" "He did. Go look for yourself." Evan stood up and shuffled the deck of cards in his back pocket, and then he headed for the stairs. At the top he paused and he said, "Jess, don't go nuts again, okay?" "I won't," she said, and she grabbed hold of the back of his t-shirt, which was Jessie's way of holding hands because she didn't really like touching. When they got to the kitchen, their mother and father were sitting at the kitchen table. Their father had a cup of coffee in front of him. Their mother was drinking a glass of water. Evan's dad stood up to give him a hug. "Hey, Evan, come here, man." "Everything okay?" asked Mrs. Tresky, looking at Evan. "Yeah, sure," he said. He walked over to his dad and they hugged. His dad lifted him off the ground. Evan wondered if his dad had hugged Jessie in the same way, and if that was what had set her off. Why couldn't his dad remember stuff like that? "I'm just going to check the mail," he said to his mom. "It's kind of early, Evan," she said. "I don't think you'll find anything." "Well, I'll just look anyway." Jessie had crept around the kitchen table and was now following Evan to the front door, holding onto his t-shirt again. Evan pulled hard on the front door. It was old and it hung crooked on its hinges, so getting it open and closed was some kind of a project. And there it was, sitting on the front steps, just as Jessie had said, an enormous black bag, stuffed full of enough clothes to last forever. "See," she whispered, "he's finally come home." I wonder if they're right. Good question. Bye. See you.